Old Town in Tallinn, Estonia. Good morning, everyone. So I'm just headed down the elevator to go meet our guide to take us around the Old Town of Tallinn. Let's go find this guy. Maybe it's a girl. I don't really know. So this is our guide today, guys. The other folks that are with me, they had a little too much to drink at Old Hansa last night. So hopefully you can hear me with all the street noise. We'll try to get this tour going.
So we're standing here next to the map, the little plan of Old Town, and as you can see, there's a big circle here, so you're sure to find yourself. We're at the Freedom Square. So this is at the border of the Old Town. The Old Town itself is actually made out of two parts. So you can see this little kidney-shaped piece over here. That's the big castle, that's the Dome Hill. And this little bit oval area over here is the actual Old Town, the lower part of the Old Town. So it consists of the higher part and the lower part, the lower part being the medieval merchants and craftsmen town, and the upper part being the castle of the clergy and of the nobility. And I might say already the relationship between those two were never really exemplary. There has been some problems, even a little battle between them, but we'll get to that. So what you can see here right now is the main axis of the Old Town, which lies actually here. So you start at one point at the Fat Margaret. This is this little round shaped actually piece of wall, but we call it a tower, at the main port. And the long street, which is called actually the Long Street, that goes through the Old Town, up the hill to the upper part, and through the small castle to Estonian Parliament right now. And the rest of the Old Town actually developed around it. You can see a bit concentric area around it. So the town wall used to run on other streets before, and then was built in the 1500s at the area where you can see right now. So these are the two main things actually why Tallinn is in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List since 1997. The parts being a medieval street network and the city wall. Two things that the city never changed. The town was built with the money from salt trade in the Hanseatic era, and after that they didn't have much money to change a lot. They built new houses, yes, but they didn't build new streets. They even didn't tear down the city walls, because at the 19th century, when they really wanted to grow, they didn't have money for it. They did manage though to tear down the city gates, which is a pity, because the gates were massive, they were amazing constructs, but they were also narrow as to keep the enemies from entering, so people couldn't go in and out of the Old Town freely in the 19th century.
Standing 75 feet high, this is the Independence Victory Column. It represents the War of Independence that took 4,000 Estonian lives and wounded more than 14,000 women, men, and children. It's made of 143 glass plates and lights up brilliantly at night. This is the place where Harju Gate once stood. Harju in Estonian means Smith's Gate. It once connected the market square of Lower Town to the Upper Town. This is where all roads out of the city started and led to the southeastern and western countries of Estonia. There was once a tower built here in the 14th century that helped guard Viru Gate. We then headed over to the old city walls. This is one of the few cities in Europe that still retain its medieval walls from the 12th century. They considered demolishing the walls in the 19th century, but it boiled down to the fact they couldn't really afford it. I loved coming here at night because the walls are all lit up in tiny shops as you walk near the walls. Truly makes you feel like you've been transported back in time. This is the oldest town hall in Northern Europe, and the best preserved, that is the Gothic style. It's a centerpiece of the heart of Tallinn and exhibits just how centralized and walkable this medieval city really is. Just behind me here at Town Hall is some of the 15th and 14th century homes that surrounded the square, including one of the oldest pharmacies in Europe still operating in the same location. The oldest records indicate that it was opened sometime around the year in 1415. In medieval times, it was herbs, distillations, and sometimes even magical concoctions that were used to treat ailments. They also dealt a bit in the black market at times, brewing one of the best weapons among nobles, poison. The first chemist here was named John Molnar. After that, the pharmacy passed to the Bouchard family, who ran the pharmacy for 325 years, from 1582 to 1911. The Bouchard sons often inherited the business along with their father's name of Johann. They are not only pharmacists, but also physicians, and played a significant role in the health and wealth of this town. Through the Black Plague in the 17th century, the Great Northern War, and even being called to attend to the Russian Tsar Peter the Great on his deathbed, this family survived and thrived. Sadly, in the 18th century, the ailing Bouchards leased out the pharmacy to the last male heir, who then died. Make sure to go into the back of the pharmacy here, where you can still see some of the knickknacks and even something like unicorn horn powder, as well as the Bouchard family crest hanging on the wall in the back. It was then on to the Le Grand Café de la Villa to get some traditional Estonian marzipan. It really felt like you were walking into a palm reader's cafe. It was so cute, and the marzipan was delicious. Okay, so marzipan apparently is pretty important here. Not exactly clear why. I'll get to that in a minute, because I'm going to ask this guy. Brilliant. Almond joy spreading over the tongue is great. This is great. Great little cafe. I feel like a tarot reader is going to pop out around the corner at any minute. Okay, so marzipan actually disappeared during the Soviet occupation. Because they didn't have access to the outside markets, they didn't have access to the almonds. So it is highly celebrated here because Estonia invented marzipan. And Lübeck was the center of the Hanseatic Empire that kind of ruled over this place. And so it is only appropriate that you try a Lübeck chocolate while you're at the Grand Cafe here. Fruity, almond, chocolate, white chocolate, perfect combination. Jan then took us to see some of the posh houses for the posh places of where posh people lived in the medieval times. Like this house that belonged to the Great Guild. Apparently they were pretty important. Make sure to check out culturetrekking.com for more details on this place and more in the link in the description box below.
So important to the town that they used one of the town symbols, the small coats of arms of town. You see the white cross with the red background. So this was at one side symbol of the town, and with the same symbol also the guild represented itself as we are the town. And you can see the broad facade and the three windows, which shows a lot of tax was paid for this house. And a lot of money was also put into representation. You can see this little lantern above the door.
Yeah.
It was the first street lighting of Tallinn.
Even though no one was really allowed to go walking past 11 p.m., they still kept a candle burning to show off their wealth. That's the first street light of Tallinn. Steps here behind me, you can see these benches, and this is kind of like the medieval Facebook. It reminds me a lot of what you can see in Gdansk in Poland. They have these kind of terraces where people would sit out and just kind of watch everybody go by, holler at them, and show their wealth that they were wearing and their homes. Pretty cool. This Art Nouveau building was constructed by Reinhold Reichmann, a famous Art Nouveau architect that was hired to enliven the streets of Tallinn with his creations. Among the details of this building is a comical sculpture of an old man gazing across the street with his spectacles. It does have quite a bit of local legends surrounding it, including a peeping Tom, but it's not exactly true. This building across from it is also quite stunning.
So you've been to Riga and you've probably seen the Blackheads Guild in Riga.
Yes.
But there is one very important asterisk at the bottom of Riga's Blackheads Guild. It's rebuilt, it's reconstructed, it hasn't survived the centuries, but Tallinn's has. I may present to you the most beautiful Renaissance facade of the whole town. And I know art is always in the eye of the beholder and beauty also, but I can say with 100% surety that this is the most beautiful Renaissance facade of the town, since it's the only Renaissance facade in Tallinn. Basically, the Renaissance is a very underrepresented in Estonia, especially in architecture, because the time of Renaissance in Estonia was time of healing the wounds of war. We had the Reformation, the collapse of the Teutonic Order. We had invasions from the east under Ivan the Terrible. We had invasions from the south. Those were the Polish who wanted to do a counter-reformation. And then we have the Swedish who came and, so to say, saved the Reformation in Estonia. They brought the troops to Tallinn and drove the Swedes from here down to the southern border of Latvia, where the historical line of Catholics and Lutherans runs up until this day. So the only ones actually vain enough to build themselves the new in vogue facade were the Blackheads, a guild of unmarried German merchants who, like bachelors in probably every time of history, had the fastest horses, the biggest parties, and thought of themselves the most. And they only stayed here until they married. After that, they moved to the Great Guild automatically. But you didn't have to get married. There were also merchants over here who were well into their 60s and stayed bachelors their whole lives and had this lifestyle and held this lifestyle for a long time. Blackheads have the name, not after these blackheads you probably know, but because of the black head of the Holy Mauritius, who is pictured on the door and above the door. Although people have said the Holy Mauritius was not really that black, he was from Northern Africa. He was more of, let's say, darker skin, but not as he is pictured now. The patron of the guild was Holy Mauritius, but we do not know even how it got to be the patron saint. There are a few theories, but none of them are really strong. So it remains a mystery up until today why the Holy Mauritius was chosen as the main, as the patron of the guild. So on the facade there are amazing Renaissance stone carvings which represent the principles of the guild. So above all you see Jesus, and below Jesus you see justice and peace, or Justitia and Pax, the Greek goddesses. Under them there are two other carvings with crusaders riding knights with lances, which meant that they were the main protection of the town as cavalry. About 200 of the Blackheads were ready to go by the first notice of war.
It was then over to see the smallest house in Tallinn, the priest house, and the oldest clock, as well as the Church of the Holy Spirit.
Precious wood carver of Tallinn. He was arrogant but very talented.
Aren't they all?
Aren't they all?
This is the Church of the Holy Spirit, built in the 14th century. Anytime I go into a church, I try to light a candle for my grandma, who has already passed on. This is a way to kind of reconnect with her. This church is incredible, and I have an entire article on it on my website, so make sure to check that out. But we're here today to see the wooden altar. The altar was made by Bernd Noki, and it was completed in 1483. He is one of the most important masters of German late Gothic style. His family were wealthy, but he was considered the most outstanding Estonian medieval artist. If you look closely, you can see the coat of arms for Estonia within the altar and throughout it. On the left wing, when it's closed, you can see the core principles of Christianity, as well as scenes from St. Catherine's life, which is the patron saint of this church. It is a gorgeous piece, and if you want to see the interior flaps like you see here, it is only open during Christmas time. This is the oldest bell in Tallinn, and unfortunately it fell from the tower when it caught on fire, but it is still on display for all to see because of the intricate work on the bell. Because Tallinn has retained its medieval city layout, the entire place is very walkable. We then wound our way through the medieval streets, back into Old Town, and down another alleyway past Munga Kelder to St. Catherine's Passage. Formerly known as Monk's Alleyway, it connected Vene Street to the Dominican Monastery and St. Catherine's. Now this passage is more than 700 years old and surrounded on one side by what feels like a city wall, and the other side that is a 15th to 17th century homes. The homes once belonged to the members of the St. Catherine's Guild. Also check out the ancient tombstones that line the walls.
The monks were quite they were the first ones to be attacked during the Reformation and relieved of their valuables because they had gathered so much. So the church was given to Estonian stone carvers as a workshop, but a few years later it burned, and people say it was the Dominicans themselves who came back and burned the church down, although there is no actual proof of it. It's more like a hearsay.
I'm obsessed with medieval times. It's like Game of Thrones, be walking up on the top there. So cool. This is the Danish King's Garden. Now, there's a lot of legends that go around this place. I don't have time to explain in the video. However, check my website out and I'll explain it all. There's monks that were killed that are now haunting the place, a Danish flag that fell that helped win the war, and so much more. Just behind the Danish King's Garden is the Alexandar Nevsky Cathedral. Built in the 1900s when Estonia was still part of the Tsar Empire, this Russian Orthodox church is just worth visiting for the bells on Sunday. It is the most powerful collection of church bells with 11 bells, including Tallinn's largest bell. While we were there, we were also able to see a massive wedding party line headed out of the church. This is Toompea Palace. It is now a part of the Estonian Parliament. Try to say that one 10 times fast. The first residents of this castle were the Danish Crusaders. In 1918, though, Estonia won their independence and finally claimed it for their own. It was then over to Toopea Overlook with gorgeous views of the entire city. This is the Eye of the Needle. It is a narrow gate that connects Harju Street to St. Nicholas. This is where the prisoners were paraded down the street because they weren't allowed to have executions in the middle of the city. It was then over to Pegasus for some much needed lunch, and boy was this food delicious. Okay, so we just stopped for lunch at Pegasus, and it is right across from this gorgeous church. They have some wild boars, some spirits here, and it's also a place where writers would congregate. And during the Soviet era, when they put all of them in the same place, it made it a lot easier to surveil them. So let's see what we can get here as far as grub. I will be going into the best places to eat in Tallinn in another video, so make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend because more the merrier. All right, Jim, how do you like your soup? And your old-fashioned.
Excellent. The old-fashioned is a rye, and we have a homemade rye bread here in Estonia, Pegasus. A wonderful restaurant with our guide Jan taking care of us here. Enjoy the channel. Enjoy Janelle. She's amazing.
I was really sad the tour was ending because I learned so much, but I had to go back to the hotel and take a quick cat nap. I was exhausted. So lunch was amazing, and I highly recommend going to Pegasus, especially since it's such a beautiful location right across from the cathedral and overlooking the ice rink. You can also do during Christmas time. So now I am headed over to Solaris, which is a shopping center where you can get really unique Nordic designs. Really excited. Right across from Solaris is the theater, which is huge in Estonia. Make sure you to go check out a show. I just spent way too much money on jewelry, but you know, I'm a sucker for locally made products and the funky designs that they do both in their art and in their jewelry. Can't pass that up. Does anyone else love to go to international grocery stores? I just think it's so cool to see what they actually have. Let me know in the comments below. I then made my way back into Old Town past Vero Gate, which is really funny to see an Irish pub, McDonald's, and this ancient city wall in front of you, which makes Estonia just so magical that way. But we went to Lee's restaurant for some delicious food. So I'm walking down these alleyways and there's just shop after shop of artwork, and I'm looking ahead of me and looking to the left and everything is lit up, and I just genuinely feel like I'm walking down the streets of a medieval city. And that's really what this is, but you feel it. It's not like Italy where you have modern and mixed with medieval. Everything just feels so old and unique here. I'm headed to Lee's restaurant where we're gonna try some more unique Estonian food. Forgive my speech, my face is a little frozen. So if you come to Estonia during the winter, make sure to dress appropriately and in layers. And don't forget to drink water. I've been a bit dehydrated the the last few days, so do make sure you drink your water. I will be going into the best places to eat in Tallinn in another video, so make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend because more the merrier. After dinner, we wandered around town and then headed to a speakeasy called Whisper Sister. My first full day in Tallinn, Estonia was a complete success. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Visitors Bureau for hosting me. And I will see you guys in the next one, where we're going to show you the best day trips to experience in Estonia. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend because why? More the merrier. I'll see you in the next one, y'all.